In this video, we're going to explore how to make some changes to an existing topo solid, as well as add in some more interesting features in terms of terrain, and also being able to make those look appropriate here in Revit. Again, this is going to affect our tiny home design, which is serving as an introduction to Revit 2025 for civil engineering and architecture. We're going to go ahead and in the previous video, we set up a topo solid, sketched out the outside boundaries, subdivided for a couple of options here, like for example an asphalt like maybe roadway, and then also maybe like a concrete pad here, and then we have some other site elements being brought in like trees and things of that nature. So one thing that we can do with topo solids is we can actually select the outside. You have to be on the outside boundary of the topo solid, and you're going to notice that you can go up here and you can even edit the sketch. We've done that before. We want to change the shape and the layout of the topo solid, but here you'll notice that I really just have a flat topo solid. So perfectly flat, it's right in line with that grade level, and you can kind of see how that kind of works as I spin this around and see that. Now, one of the things we're going to play around with here is when I select the topo solid, so I can say to modify the sub elements, which allows me to add some different points and things like that. So I'll select that, and then I'm going to go ahead and say add a point, and I'm going to select that option. Maybe I want to add a point back here behind the tiny home, and it says right now, because I'm added a point, it's going to adjust the elevation of the ground level, and it says the highlighted topo solid and floor overlap. That's going to give me a warning for a little while. I'm just going to go ahead and select OK. And here, when I added that point in, you're going to see right now it did kind of raise it up just a little bit. And if I select on that point, so right now I'm still adding points. So let me go ahead and just right click and select cancel once. You're going to notice that add point is no longer highlighted, and now it's modifying the sub elements. So if I select that dot and if I change it, it's at 0 feet 0 inches. If I either grab it from this point, I can kind of move it around freely. I don't really like that because it does move it in the X, Y, and sometimes the Z direction. So I just really want to grab the arrow and kind of pull this up to make this up just a little bit more elevated. Kind of like we have a hill that we've kind of built our tiny home into a little bit here. Once I get finished, I'm going to go ahead and just select cancel. And you're going to be able to see now the contour of the ground, and you're going to see that hill and even some of the trees have adjusted to be for that little hillside there. Okay, and what's happened now is actually, as I take a look through the windows, when I adjusted the height of that topo solid, if I look through my bay window here, I can see I've got grass inside of my tiny home. So because now we've adjusted the height, then it has to slope and meet those. And you'll see some of these contour lines. So the further away the lines are, the flatter some of these areas are. So I'm going to go ahead and just play around with this, and I encourage you to do the same by adding points. Maybe I add another couple here in the front. And you're going to see that even the subdivisions, the roadway is going to kind of change a little bit. So I'm going to right click to say cancel once, select the point, change the elevation, maybe adjust it up or adjust it down, and you're going to see that as I cancel, this is going to give us kind of what we have going on. Now some of that you do have to watch, because you can see now I've got most of the topo solid come up to like the bottom of the windows, and it is adjusting and affecting where our placement is for our subdivision, which was our concrete walkway here. In fact, if I select it, you can see where that level is. So either one of two things, I would need to be adjusting the level of the tiny home and the stairs to match that, or I can always kind of play around with that. But you can see adding points kind of does it. Anytime I go to select the topo solid, I can always say modify the sub elements. Those dots come back. Maybe I actually, rather than raising it up, I want to go ahead and drop it down, even to the point where it actually slopes down a little bit more into this point. And again, the height portion can kind of stay where it's at. So if you look at it from the side, you can also maybe see kind of where your points are. If I right click and say cancel, you can see that, hey, I'm kind of getting some of these options and everything here. So just depends on how you're kind of working with some of this. You are able to modify and kind of change some of those elements. I'm actually going to bring this back one down just a small amount so you can see how it's kind of adjusting there as well. Okay, this one's looking a little bit better. So you can definitely tell that if we need to, we can always adjust and make some changes, but there's what we're looking at for our subdivision. Now, you're going to notice that whenever I select the topo solid, we lost that little kind of warning. I'm actually going to play around with this just a little bit, modifying my sub-elements. I'm going to bring this back up just a small amount until I get that warning back. So I'm actually going to close that warning. I'm going to go ahead and say cancel a couple times. You're going to see that if I select the topo solid, here's the related warning. So this is the message. You can always bring it back up if you ever want to see it. But here's the thing that I want to do is you're going to see that, oh, I've got, again, I've got the grass kind of coming in there. And actually, if I want to modify the sub-element, I'm actually going to get rid of this point just by selecting it and saying delete. So same thing on the front. I'm going to go ahead and select and just say delete. And that way we just have the one there in the back. Okay. Now, again, you're going to be able to see here. So that's how you can delete points and do some of those things. Here you're going to see, oh, I've got grass inside of the tiny home, which doesn't really help us out too much there. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click and say cancel. If I select the topo solid, you have an option to excavate. So, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to select that excavate tool. I need to find the floor. So if I hover over where the floor would be at in our topo solid, if I was to rotate underneath, I can't really see that flooring, but if I kind of hover, zoom in here and hover over where the flooring would be for our topo solid, so you're going to see right at about, there we go, I found the floor in there. And so you notice I kind of had to search for it just a little bit. So, but wherever the floor would be, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select it. And then it's now going to see that, hey, when I select that floor, when I have that excavate option, I don't see the ground there in there anymore. And if I say cancel, if I rotate down, I'm actually going to see that if I select the topo solid, you don't see I don't have really like a cutout, but what I've got now is it's cut out, use the floor as a cutout around to be able to make that happen. So now one thing I might have to do is I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this truck. And you might have to do a little bit editing on your, as you adjust, make changes to your topo solid, you may have to adjust some of the subdivisions. So I'm going to select that subdivision for the concrete pad and select edit sketch. And you might have to kind of look at, yep, as we were shifting around and changing some of the geometry, you can see the boundaries kind of way up there with our stairs. So I'm going to kind of pull this in just a little bit more just by clicking and dragging that line. And then go ahead and select the green check mark. So that way I'm there. I can also take a look at if I need to, like for example, if I select the actual shed itself, which is probably best done in the site plan. You'll see that I can select like a floor or anything like that, or any of the stairs. But everything, and I'm going to go ahead and move to the 3D view just to show you. Every item, so like here's a handrail, and like you can see my stairs are now kind of embedded below, and even then the topo solid is kind of interfering with the door. So I might have to put in a couple more points, maybe here and here. Notice how it kind of built that back up though, so maybe I want to get rid of that point there. And let me go ahead and right click and say cancel. So there's the bottom of our door, and if I select my topo solid, modify the sub elements, maybe I just need to drop this down about a foot. There we go. And go ahead and select cancel. Now we're able to see there's our walkway, There's our stairs. If I need to adjust, maybe edit my sketch, if I want to bring it back up to where the edge of the stairs are, select the green check mark. There we've got our concrete pad walkway. We have, whoops, just right underneath the bottom, so as I was rotating around. So now we end up having an excavated point. We have a little bit of contour to our ground behind us, and we've actually kind of leveled it out a little bit so that way our stairs will show up for us, and then that way everything looks a little bit more put together. So this kind of completes how to edit some of the site components that you find in Revit, and just wanted to show you some of the capabilities that you can do in order to create a little bit more realistic appearances even with your site plan, and just kind of work with some of those features within the Revit 2025 interface.